Welcome back to the third lecture in psychopathology. We left off lecture 2 starting to discuss the anxiety disorders, so let's continue with an anxiety list. There is a list of phobias online. Some of the type of phobias, the first 4 in the list: agoraphobia, which is the fear of public places and open spaces; acrophobia, which is the fear of heights; arachnophobia, which is the fear of spiders. Many of you have seen that movie. And agoraphobia, which is the fear of sexual abuse. Think of being aggravated assaults, so agoraphobia. And agoraphobia and agoraphobia are confused often, which is why I wanted to put this list up to begin with. But there are thousands of things that people are afraid of, and you may laugh at some of them, like the fear of the color red, but it's not funny to the person that's experiencing the disorder. They need help. And you can find that list at www.phobialist.com. The preparedness hypothesis is the notion that we have an innate tendency to respond quickly and automatically to stimuli that posed a survival threat to our ancestors. In the ancient past, there may have been people who were not afraid of snakes. They would see a snake and pick it up and play with it. Eventually, they would play with the wrong snake, a poisonous one, and get bit and die. Another group of people may have been afraid of snakes and avoided them. Something in their genes made them fear creepy, crawly things. They never played with snakes, and they lived longer and had more children than the ones who died. So if the fear of snakes was genetic, then their children would also be afraid of snakes. This would explain why we're afraid of snakes and lightning, but not afraid of automobiles and electrical sockets, which actually cause more harm in our present world. Will we then develop a world of people who are afraid of cars? Well, I doubt it, because the human race has found a way to avoid the survival of the fittest. Now, if drugs and hospitals, emergency services, machines, and everything else broke down, then we might fall back into the Darwinian pattern. But right now, almost all of us survive and pass our defective genes to the next generation, who also survive in spite of our failings. The brain mechanism most associated with anxiety is probably the amygdala. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, is also a form of anxiety. It is a condition characterized by patterns of persistent, unwanted thoughts and behaviors. The thoughts are the obsessions and the behavior is the compulsion, so it's really two disorders in one. People can have obsessive thoughts without the behaviors and behaviors without the thoughts. 2.5% of the U.S. population have this disorder, and there appears to be a genetic link. Tics are found in people with OCD, and this is not those blood-sucking little animals that we get while walking in the woods. Tics are uncontrolled movements or vocalizations. Most of you will have experienced muscle spasms in your eyelids called ticking of the eyelid. It feels like the entire world can see the twitching of your muscles in your eye, but truly no one notices until, of course, you cover your eye with your hand and then everybody asks you, "What's the matter?" The twitching is annoying, but imagine having an involuntary movement that is very large and very visible to the population. This is the symptom of Tourette's syndrome. It's not fun. Worse are the uncontrolled vocalizations, which are usually items we are told we should not repeat, like 4-letter words. You know what I mean. It is almost as if the mechanism in the brain that we use to suppress our thoughts is reversed in people with Tourette syndrome. Somatoform disorders are psychological problems appearing in the form of bodily symptoms or physical complaints. They are psychogenic disorders because they have no apparent biological cause. One specific type is called a conversion disorder, which is a somatoform disorder marked by paralysis or weakness or loss of sensation, but with no discernible physical cause. One type of conversion disorder is called glove anesthesia. A client will describe that their hand appears to be dead, and you can ask them to place their hands behind their back and stick the dead hand with a pin, and the client does not feel anything. But if you stick anywhere else on their arm, they feel the pain. That should not happen. For instance, in this picture, if the thumb is dead to pain, then biologically the arm on the same side should also be dead. But there's no logical biological reason for the thumb to be dead but not the arm. And that is what makes it a psychogenic disorder. We can describe a method in which this could happen. Sensations come from the brain. So if the brain for the specific area of the body stops responding, then you could get the condition that this client describes. But it is not a nervous system disorder, it's a neuron brain disorder. Again, this makes it psychogenic. Hypochondriasis is a somatoform disorder involving excessive concern about health and disease. You have all probably heard of someone being called a hypochondriac. This is a person who surfs the web looking at different diseases, thinking they have every one of them because they have a specific symptom or two of a disease that requires multiple symptoms. People with Ebola have a fever. Oh my gosh, I have a fever. I must have Ebola. This is different than a malingerer who uses disease as an excuse to do nothing. Every time they're supposed to do a task, they have some disease that prevents them from accomplishing that task. That's a malingerer. Now we come to one of my favorite disorders. It is classified as a dissociative disorder. These issues are a group of pathologies involving fragmentation or loss of personality. They include amnesia, dissociative fugue, depersonalization disorder, and dissociative identity disorder. Amnesia is a loss of memory for personal information. Usually this is anterograde, but sometimes we see retrograde amnesia. Anterograde is the inability to place new memories into your brain. The hippocampus may be damaged in this case because it is responsible for making permanent memories. All the memories you already have are still there, but you cannot create any new memories. Then there's retrograde, which is the loss of the memories you already have. It is not easy to lose memories in a healthy brain. Retrograde amnesia is part of the process of Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, but a healthy brain should not lose memories. If a person hits their head very hard, then the shock may cause the brain not to function properly for a short period of time, but getting shot in the back should not make you forget who you are. Think of the Bourne Identity, the movie. He got shot and fell off a boat and lost his memories. Well, this would not happen, unless, of course, he hit his head when he fell. Dissociative fugue is amnesia with also the addition of flight from one's home, family, and job. In this case, it is usually retrograde amnesia, and there's usually damage to the brain and high stress or alcohol. They may contribute to the condition. It does seem to be related to some impairment of the brain. Curiously, you can read something into the definition that's given for dissociative fugue, because notice that the person is lost, does not know who they are, where they work or live, but they're usually found heading away from those locations. In other words, they actually do know who they are, where they work, where their family is, and they are escaping. Depersonalization disorder is an abnormality involving the sensation of mind and body having separated. There's an old religious argument that our souls live within our bodies, that we are not our bodies, we are our souls. So if our soul was placed in another body, we would look at ourselves in a mirror and think, that's not me. This actually happens, not the soul part. I can't even confirm that we have a thing such as a soul, but people do wake up and think, this is wrong, this is not me. Also, the proprioceptors in the specific areas of their body may stop functioning, and if you have no feedback from a body part, it seems like it is not your own. In a book by Oliver Sacks called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, Dr. Sacks tells the story of a person who woke up one day with someone else's leg in their bed. Like the movie The Godfather and the horse's head, he freaked out and threw the leg out of bed, and the problem was it was his leg and attached to him, so he threw himself out of bed. It sounds humorous, but it isn't to the person who no longer recognizes his own leg. By the way, that book is fascinating and easy reading if you want to know more about how specific damage to the brain affects specific behaviors and thoughts. Robin Williams played the real-life Dr. Oliver Sacks in the 1990 movie called Awakenings. It was Oliver Sacks' first job out of the medical school, and he found coma patients in a mental ward who did not act like typical coma patients, and he found a way to wake them up out of their comas, only to find, like the book Flowers for Algernon, that they became habituated to the drug and they slowly reverted back to the coma stage. Ultimately, we can find out An out-of-body experience, we can define it as astral projection, as a depersonalization disorder. Some people describe that they can separate from their bodies and float free. When they return to the bodies, they describe events that happened around them. Some report going far away from their bodies. The United States government spent millions of dollars researching this. Can you guess why? Let me add that the Russians also spent millions of dollars researching this. Now can you guess why? So let me tell you why. If a soldier could go to sleep in the Pentagon and separate from his body and float over to the Kremlin and listen to everything that was said at the Kremlin, and they could understand Russian, and then they could wake up and tell the U.S. military what they heard, well, you'd have the perfect spy. Well, neither the United States nor Russia are spending money on this any longer. And again, can you guess why? Most of my students will say, because they found out it's bunk, that no one can do that. Well, I like to be controversial, so let me say this, that every single one of our embassies have counter-espionage equipment installed so that agents of the government of the country in which the embassy resides cannot listen in on the conversations happening in our embassies. So what if, during the research on astral projection, they found a way to prevent it? No more need to study it. I kind of like making this class fun sometimes. So dissociative identity disorder may be one of my favorite pathologies. It's a condition in which an individual displays multiple personalities. This is usually confused with schizophrenia, which is a split from reality, by the general population, and it may seem to you that a person acting as if they have two people inside of them is not facing reality, so it should maybe considered as a part of schizophrenia, but each of the personalities that they say they have knows what time it is, what year it is, who the president is, who our friends and enemies are, and how money and business works. Each personality is rooted in reality, and schizophrenics are not. That's why it's not schizophrenia. This condition usually occurs within women and normally presents with more than two identities. There's a lot of controversy over this condition. Many psychologists do not believe that it is truly two identities, while others do. So what does it matter? If you could treat a person who presents as a dissociative identity disorder and help them, then helping them is what counts. The split usually occurs in childhood as a defense to protect the person from a terrifying event. In the 1976 movie Sybil, Sally Fields plays one of the most well-known and documented split personality patients in the United States. When she was 4 years old, her grandmother died, and when she and her mother went to the funeral home, her mother picked her up, laid her on her grandmother's cold, dead body in the casket, and told her to kiss her grandmother goodbye. This freaked her out so badly that her mind created another personality to deal with the situation. Another great Hollywood movie portraying dissociative identity disorder is the 2003 movie Identity, and I have given you a link here for it. It's a great trailer. You should listen to that trailer if you haven't seen the movie. I'm getting close to my 15-minute limit, so I'm going to stop here and we'll pick this back up in the next section.